kind of sitting in pods. If you are that person who kind of wants to hang in the back, that's totally fine. If you are someone who wants to join a table of 2 or 3, there is going to be some pairing and sharing tonight as you work through a couple of different activities. And sometimes it's just helpful to hear what other people's experience has been, as it might inform your own process of thinking, okay? So real quick, just with the people around you, just whip around and take 30 seconds just to tell them your name.
I'm sorry. Alma, okay. I'm Alex. Two kids here. I know. 2 kids. Junior.
And I just had
5 more seconds.
Which middle school?
And then we're going to do a little more sharing. I want you to think about the number 1, 2, or top 3 skill that you've used in your life to navigate some of the most challenging parts of your journey. So just take a minute to think about what is one thing that you can think of, maybe your top 1, 2, or 3, that you've used to get through some pretty challenging circumstances. And then if you're willing, and you don't have to share, you can say pass. Sometimes it feels a little more personal for others. Sometimes it's a little more serious. Sometimes it's a little less serious. We'd ask that you would share that with the person next to you. So take 30 seconds and do so.
I'm going to go with human. There's a line on Slow down.
I think I tend to talk to friends. Walking away, I think talk about skill.
That's a good thing to do. Remind myself to do that.
Okay, we are going to ask that we share out kind of for the good of the whole, just to kind of hear what some people are thinking. We have some inklings around what some of the things might be, but I just want to hear some of you say it. So we're going to start over here. Feel free just to popcorn, say what came to mind. Jared.
What came to mind with me? My grandmother raised me surrounded by high fields, bare feet in Mississippi, and my only child I had at 37. She always taught me when things go really good or really bad, always go to myself first and picture God watching, and then after that, then I can come out in the world and get other people's opinion, and it really helped. So I instilled that with my son and all the other baseball players, that always picture God watching, and from that, you can accomplish anything, and He guides you through. That's mine.
Jared, thank you. Is there anybody else from this table? No, Jared. So this spirituality for you is a really grounding piece for you.
Yes, sir. Like now, I feel God's Spirit here with all of us.
I appreciate you sharing.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen.
Okay, I'll share. I was saying that oftentimes I try and, when in a situation, I try and listen to what people are saying and what the details are, and that kind of, oftentimes people will not listen to all the details and not get the whole story.
Brother, so listening is a skill that takes practice, right?
What's that?
Listening is a skill. How about over here?
I guess that I talk to friends or people I know who are kind of in the same difficult situation that I'm in at certain times and bounce ideas off. And I find someone who is a good listener.
So relationships,
For me. Yeah.
connection. Good. Anyone back here?
We just got here.
Just got here. Just so you know what we're doing, we're talking about what is one of the top 1, 2, or 3 things in your life that has really helped you navigate some of the more challenging parts of your journey. Okay, so just kind of think about that. Back here real quick.
I said take a walk.
Take a walk, getting a breath of fresh air,
Ask
taking
for
a step
help.
back,
Ask for help.
asking for help, right? A lot of our students don't have that skill. They need to learn how to do that. Anybody here?
Well, I'm more of an introvert, so I'm in the take a walk school.
You're an introvert?
Is something you can do by yourself
Yep.
and clear your mind.
That recharges you, right? Lastly.
Being involved in that persistence. Yeah, just persistent until you figure it out.
Persistence, right, not giving up, in spite of challenge. Great. I'm going to wrap things up, folks. Just so you know, we have some kind of segments that we put for you on the yellow sheet. That's a place where you can take notes. The green sheet is the paper that Ginger referred to around the kind of evaluation of your experience tonight. And then the white sheet, Lisa will be working with you on a different activity. I'm going to hand it over to Carolyn. And before I do, I just want to encourage you, if you come up with questions, concerns, or thoughts as we go through, jot them down somewhere. We're going to have a time for questions and discussion at the end. About 5-10 minutes, maybe more.
Essentially, we're all here, I'm assuming, because we're trying to figure out how to help the adolescents in our life, or the pre-adolescents in our life, figure themselves out, gain confidence, and be able to launch from our homes, launch from our school, feeling independent, feeling confident about what they're doing next. The core theme of what we're going to talk about is this whole finding balance. We chuckle amongst ourselves about finding balance because sometimes we are rather imbalanced ourselves and give great advice but don't always follow it sometimes for ourselves. You can imagine how that is. But what I wanted to start off with was just kind of putting everything in context. And why do we think that it's important for our students to leave here understanding what they need to be a balanced human being? So I wanted to just kind of give a couple examples of what the adults in the outer world are sharing with us when they get our students. So we have our kids are going off directly to college. Some of our students are going into military service or other community service programs. And then we have some of our students who are going right into work. We work with employers locally and around the Chicagoland area, and we're also doing our reading and research of trends and so on. So something that comes up a lot is employers' concerns about our young people and their critical thinking skills, our young people ability to adapt to new situations, and dealing with failure, quite frankly, not knowing how to problem solve on the spot. When I visit colleges and college admissions officers come here to talk to us, concerns that arise is kids now having to manage themselves without the reminders, without our nagging, without our alarms, without our getting them to move. Concern about higher levels of worry and anxiety and depression and other mental illnesses. And then I think the other concern that comes up to us is just not feeling as if they know how to structure their time well. Because especially coming from high school, boop, the bell rings, they get up, they go to the next thing. They got a busy practice schedule. They know I got practice on these days, I've got games on these days. I've got to show up for this club or show up for this, work job interview. And the college life for those of us who recall those years, it seems like there was a lot of open time, and many of our students are going off to school and not knowing how to manage that open time. So one of the things that we've been talking about are better ways that we as school student service officials, student service staff can help our students be more mindful of what individual needs are and to help them practice some of those skills before they go. Because they have to practice. All the talking that we often do doesn't always stick with some of our students. And then in terms of what parents and family can do to help as well, we're going to go through some ideas that have worked. We actually have students who come back to us and be like, oh, I wish I had actually taken that advice when you gave it. But later on figured out that they needed to do some of this self-inquiry a little bit earlier. So we're going to talk about some of those ideas.
Awesome. Thanks, Carolyn.
So in finding balance, we put a pie chart on your tables. So we're going to take about 5 minutes. For those of you that don't have one, I'll bring some around.
The white sheet.
The white sheet on the table. So 5 minutes just to map out your typical school day for your child.
And we've colored markers and pencils. You try to think of your child, a typical day for your
Oh, you need kid, not for you. Have your kid in mind. Everybody clear over here? Good. Yeah. How they spend their day. Yeah, I just heard the comment, every kid is different. I think in preparing tonight, we're like, 250 different kids, we have 250 different families. There's no one size fits all. There's not always a right or wrong answer, it's really just knowing.
Obviously, if you have multiple children, just pick one for this
Yeah.
exercise.
I guess we're talking maybe about a weekday,
Hours of the day. So, like, this guy's over here,
It's not supposed to be the clock, is it? It's
It's
just supposed
just
to be
24 hours a day, how they spend it. So you could start with sleep, or you could start with school, whatever.
Okay, clear, thank you.
No, no worries.
okay, I should add.
We're gonna take about 1 more minute here.
That's why he had all this extra time.
Okay. So I'm just wondering what patterns we're seeing, if anybody wants to share out with their chart. I did one on my daughter, who, she's 24 now, and when she was going here, I don't know how she did it, because there was not any time left in the day. And I mapped out that she slept 9 hours, which she never did. She was usually doing homework until about midnight. So what are some other patterns we might be seeing with this?
Too much time on electronics, interspersed with that.
Okay, too much time.
It's painful to watch, in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't want that.
How many people would resonate with your comment?
Could you repeat, I didn't hear the comment.
Too much time on electronics, screen
Okay,
time.
all right.
Okay.
And that's intermixing social media, that's
Yep.
TikToks, it's TV, it's you name it.
So actually looking for more structure in his schedule,
Her schedule.
her schedule.
I mean, it's full, but it's just, I feel like
Constant screen.
it is, it's, and we've tried a million different things, so.
What other trends?
If it weren't more for meals together, we wouldn't have very much family time. I had to put those in the same color, like, ooh, meals are our family time.
Right. Was it the same for yours? I
Yeah,
assume-
no, it is, absolutely.
Okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm looking at it, it's actually not surprising, not a lot of downtime.
Right.
I mean, it's very structured and even almost that you have to structure downtime. You know, there's no kind of flexibility or spontaneity, no time for spontaneity.
Anybody else?
For me, it was feast or famine. On days where there's sports, there's not enough hours, and on days when there's not, there's all this extra and loose ends time.
Right. So, I mean, I thought it was a real eye-opener when I had done this with my daughter. And so, what to look for? I mean, so what are some of the signs you can look for a balanced schedule or an unbalanced schedule? So, some of the signs for a balanced schedule would be,
And this is based on stuff we see here, stuff we've seen in research. This is what we see here.
so it's where students actually have time to spend with friends occasionally. I have some students, so things to look for, like, might be anxiety that's unbalanced, might be anxiety, they're withdrawn. I have students tell me that they don't have time to spend with friends, no family time, not getting 9 hours of sleep, and research does show that an adolescent needs 9 hours of sleep a night. And the other piece is that they cannot make it up. We can't say that they can get 6 hours a night for 4 or 5 nights. It can't be made up, the damage is done. So it might be causing anxiety, it could cause depression. I have a lot of students that come in that are very type A, and want all A's and want to do everything. And they're worried about too, I don't know if you had mentioned, about getting into college and they have to do like 4 or 5 activities. And so what are the signs that we look for, and then how we as parents can manage that schedule for them? Because we don't want to send them off to college being really stressed out, no time, and then they're going to college not equipped to handle it. Maybe you could share some of the things that we might notice if there is a balanced schedule.
So I would say in our experience, and again, this is based on our work with the students here at Oak Park, as well as some of the research that we've done in our practices, you know, a kid who presents as pretty autonomous, who's pretty independent, a kid who is good at connecting with others, has time, makes time, knows how to create the space in order to connect. They're reasonable in their assessment of themselves, others, and situations. This is a big one. We call it kind of, I call it like feet on the ground or grounding kids in reality. We all know that teenagers, their frontal lobe is still forming, so we're not always talking about completely rational human beings, right? They need you when they need you, but they're trying to, that adult on. Typically kids who we see find good balance or are finding good balance, I think it's always an ongoing process, are often curious, they're often open-minded, they tend to respond versus react. So they're more thoughtful about how they engage with situations, even in whether it's a conflict or other. They're thoughtful about their levels of engagement. So I had one student who was, really into the theater arts, she's really into the theater arts, and she just knew that she had gotten a little spread too thin. And so she was able to articulate, like, I need to take a step back and take some time to kind of center myself. And so when a kid is able to articulate that to me, it indicates to me that there's some levels that are functioning in a way that are appropriate and healthy.
And that stepping back is not a sign of failure.
Yes.
And I think that's also something that we do need to reiterate. Where, we have students who are so concerned, like, well, if I give something up, it'll look like I can't handle it.
Yep.
As opposed to, it's like, be honest with yourself. And you've got to create limits. You've got to create some boundaries, and stepping back is probably the smarter thing to do in
Yeah.
certain situations. So
Very much so an
reinforcing
indicator that a student is kind of, that there's balance there. Able to consider multiple perspectives at the same time and then make an informed decision. Sometimes, as you are well aware, your teenager can be so caught up in their world or their thinking or what's going on for them. It's often an indicator that there's some imbalance going on. Lastly, demonstrate the ability to adapt. So their ability to be adaptable, their ability to function and respond and be flexible versus this rigidity, generally for me indicates for us that a student is experiencing a level of balance that seems appropriate.
So I think one of the things that I see often as well is that a student that is overscheduled and taking multiple honors AP classes, and they want to do all the extra, but they don't know how to say no. They don't know how to back down. And I've seen it quite a bit create a lot of anxiety. And then another thing you may notice is you might see a decline in grades. So if they're typically doing pretty well in school, and then you notice that they're not getting out as much and you're seeing a decline in grades, that's really something to take a look at too, because you guys, we as parents get to set that, we're the role models, right? So even finding ourselves, like balance. So on this pie chart too, what I find really interesting that I didn't even think about until today is like when you're talking about all the activities that they do, we even have to incorporate the driving there, the driving home. So it's not just an hour there, it could be another half an hour to 40 minutes even in the drive time with all the things that they're doing. So how do we sit down with them if we're seeing that they're unbalanced to help them find some balance? And I think the first thing is just to have that conversation with them. And even like a planner, using a planner with them or having a monthly planner you can put on the wall to map out. And having the conversation with them, I've had some students come into my office and they may have, one student in particular has 5 extracurricular activities and he's in AP classes, honor classes, and he's not doing them because he enjoys them. He tells me I'm doing them because I need to do all of them to get into the college that I want to get into. And so he's not hanging out with friends. And so even as the parent, we get to say, when you have that conversation with them, is this something you're really enjoying? And if you're not really enjoying it, let's take a look at maybe pulling that back from that one, because for them to even have that downtime is a fantastic thing, because that's how they figure out then what they are passionate about and what they want to do in that downtime. So I think as parents, it's hard, but sometimes the student will they'll be in the office with us and the student will be talking with the parent and they'll be like, no, I want to do all of this. I want to do all of this. And so it's even with us sitting with the parents sometimes and saying, like, sometimes we have to say that this is just too much for them.
Then on the flip side, for us, we're working with the students throughout, we get to get them for 4 years, which is a great system here. And as we're helping them pick schools for those who are college bound, they have to kind of show that they have committed to some activities and have paid more attention to depth as opposed to breadth. And when that time comes, we see many flummoxed young people who are like, well, I don't know, I like all of the things that I do, and I just did a lot of things, and there wasn't one that really stuck out to me. And it's going to be really helpful, for us, maybe if we get to them a little earlier, pick maybe 2 or 3 things that are really important to you, that you can really commit yourself to, that you find fulfilling. And I think that's the piece that we try to build into our conversations. Don't do just because you think that this is what these other people, those strangers on the other side, will be impressed by. Do what feels good to you. Do things that help you grow. Do things that are meaningful. And it makes, A, so much easier to write those essays when it's coming from a genuine place. But then B, we'd see that they cut out quite a bit of extra fluff that isn't doing much good for them. So it's a hard thing. It's hard to pick what you're going to drop.
And I think it's important to remember too that not all adolescents are the same. So you may have one student that can handle 3 APs, an honor, a job, like 2 extracurriculars, but that doesn't mean that all students can handle that. I mean, just like myself, I can be very much extrovert, but I recharge by being an introvert, and that requires some downtime by myself at home, and I think that everybody recharges differently. So some takeaways that we wanted with today's session.
One of my favorites is bringing boredom back. I don't know if any of you have heard this movement about, we need to be a little bit more bored, because here's what happens when we're, bored in a structured kind of fashion. It can inspire creativity. If you're just scheduling true downtime where you allow your mind to be clear, think about the things that you are often too busy to think about, and I mean this both for the adults and for our young people that we're working with. Scheduling time in this wheel to just be. And I think that is something that is very challenging for us to do, but as adults, if we can model that for our children, sometimes you just have to put the electronics away. We just have to commit these hours. This is going to be quiet time. Everyone's got to find something to do that has nothing to do with an electronic, has nothing to do with your work day, has nothing to do with your homework. And start in small bits, but then grow that. And I feel like then our young people will have more opportunities to find things like, oh yeah, because I always did like to draw. And I think that's what pains me too when I'm sitting with my students and they have hobbies, they have these things that are great stress relievers for them, and they say, but I don't have time to do that. So we need to learn how to make time, and we can help them make that time. So bringing a little bit of boredom back, schedule it.
So there's kind of these 6 takeaways that we came up with as a team that we felt really kind of encapsulated what we felt were good recommendations. So one of them is bringing boredom back. The time is ticking, so I'm going to be quick. The second one is just modeling balance. So families are often overscheduled, as you are well aware. We're not telling you anything you don't know. And setting limits, learning how to prioritize how you as a parent, how you as a family model that. The third thing would be is when to say when. This does not mean that we're raising quitters. So again, to Carolyn and Lisa's earlier point about learning how to help students know that it's okay to take a step back. I would say in our community there can be this college-going frenzy almost. And I would mean that to say, I have 2 grandfathers who were college presidents, and all my brothers and sisters and I went to community college. My family was middle-income America. My older brother's now a CEO of his own company. He does very well. And then I transferred to U of I. I just think that it's important to break down the mythology that there's this one pathway for a child to go. I came up in a family that had very high expectations, but I understood that learning my path and learning where I went was an important part of the journey. So just kind of breaking that down. When to say when. This does not mean that we're raising quitters. This does not mean that they're less than.
And then I think, last but not least, is just healthy lifestyle, right? So how important the sleep is, exercise, eating healthy, and I think when I talk about even the eating part, how important it is for students. They value so much sitting down with their parents and having a meal. They really do. I have students come in and they tell me that they miss that so much. They're like, something just doesn't feel right. Like, we don't even sit down and have a meal together anymore. And that's what happens when we get so busy. And so I say to them, I said, what if you went home and you said to your mom or dad or guardian that like, it'd be really great if even like twice a week we sat down and shared a meal, and they come back and tell me that they did that, and it's just so nice for them. So I think just having that, and then a healthy conversation, so that you as the parent can sit down with your child and talk to them about what is it that you enjoy doing out of your schedule if you're seeing that there's some imbalance and they don't have enough downtime. And you being able to talk about what they really enjoy. What do you really enjoy that you have here, and what can you step away from?
And then having the kids answer this question.
Have you ever,
In terms of why they're doing the things that they are doing. And again, mentioned college going push here. If our students who are heavily packed with activities and hard classes and all sorts of responsibilities, they may say it's about trying to get into the best college they possibly can get into, but being careful to guide them in terms of a fit. Go to a place where you don't have to be on 10 all of the time. Go to a place that's not going to be crazy hyper competitive if that competition is something that causes so much stress for you. Finding enjoyment in the busyness. So sometimes we're just busy, and we take that as a sign of, oh, that means that they're productive and they're successful. But being busy doesn't always mean that. So making sure that the young people are thinking ahead, setting their goals, and that what they're filling up their time with is matching where they want to go or who they really want to grow into. So that's on us to challenge them with that and help them be true to themselves.
So are we ready for our little clip at the end here?
We're ready. We're like chugging right along. We're trying to stay on schedule.
Okay, so we have a 2-minute clip here that we wanted to share with you.
And then if you've got some good questions or good ideas, feel free to be ready to do those.
Heard of the Harvard study that ran for 75 years to assess what makes us happy. It's a revolutionary study in psychology. It followed the lives of 2 groups of men for over 75 years, and it now follows their baby boomer children to understand how childhood experience reaches across decades to affect health and well-being.
I need to stop and say, this was done in 1930. Half of the study were Harvard folks, all men. The other half of the study were South Side Bostonians, all men. Pretty much, I think, all white, so I'm just...
Middle age. So what keeps us happy and healthy as we go through life? If you think it's fame and money, you're not alone. But according to psychiatrist Robert Waldinger, you're mistaken. As the director of a 75-year-old study on adult development, Waldinger has unprecedented access to data on true happiness and satisfaction, and he lays it all bare in this TED Talk.
Keeps us healthy and happy as we go through life. If you were going to invest now in your future best self, where would you put your time and your energy? The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. We've learned 3 big lessons about relationships. The first is that social connections are really good for us, and that loneliness kills. Second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matters. And the third big lesson that we learned about relationships and our health is that good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains.
So, the biggest predictor of your happiness and fulfillment overall in life is basically love. Specifically, the study showed that having someone you can rely upon helps your nervous system relax, helps your brain stay healthy, and reduces emotional pain. The data also clearly found that those who feel lonely are more likely to see their physical health decline earlier and die younger. It's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship. It's the quality of your close relationships that matters. It doesn't matter whether you've got a huge group of friends or if you're in the perfect romantic relationship. It's the quality of the relationships that count the most. How much depth and honesty exists within them, the extent to which you can relax and be seen for who you truly are. This is a great reminder to prioritise authentic connection with others, because the data is clear that in the end, you could have all the money you've ever wanted, but without loving relationships, you won't be happy.
Thanks, guys. Does anybody have any questions?
Guys, as we go into the question time, I just wanted to acknowledge Kim Naki, who is the Executive Director for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Did I say that correctly, Kim?
Or just a question.
Sure.
I feel like as a generation of parents, we've kind of done this, we've harmed our kids in the sense that we, like you were talking about boredom being so important, and I believe that, is definitely true. We start overscheduling our kids at ungodly early ages. I just remember, and I remember the pressure I felt of, kindergarten parents being like, well, your child's not in this, and you need to be in this, and they never learn to just be. And I don't know, I just think that and then how can we expect them to learn how to do that once they're 14, 15, 16, So I don't know, it's just an interesting thought, because I feel like none of us grew up as scheduled as our kids are. I mean, we didn't, we'd say, what, rode your bike, or you just, I don't know, it's not that they don't do this, but there are so many things after school, you go from one activity to another, and I feel like we can't all of a sudden expect them to know how to find balance or to appreciate boredom when they haven't learned it.
Right. No, and that's where we could start with that healthy conversation.
Yeah.
Right, and we could lead by example.
Right.
And I know it's hard even for us nowadays, we're so overscheduled, but yeah, it's a good point.
What's your name?
Jenny.
Jenny. How many people resonate with some of what Jenny said?
Yeah, I'd also say that even just the term, I've heard the same thing about boredom and how that, promotes creativity, but boredom, at least, has a negative connotation. You can't be bored, don't be bored, find something to do. And I see that with my own kids. I'm bored, and I try to encourage them. They're like, but we need something to do.
Brother,
So-
we are swimming in the weeds or the waters of, like, if we're not running around like a chicken with our head cut off, or if we're not, busy, we're not being productive.
Or we're not valued.
Or we're not valued.
Exactly.
Right? So we're swimming in those waters. We know that's out there, and so it's tough to create. It's tough to be countercultural in that way sometimes. And every kid is different.
I just want to add that when we talk about boredom, the other thing to think about is we're not letting our children just be alone. And when you're alone, you learn how to be comfortable with yourself. And that's something that's been lost. And something else that is happening is with all the technology, children are not having to cope with challenging emotions. I didn't say negative, I said challenging, like anger, fear, frustration, upset, because I'm starting to feel these challenging emotions. You know what, I'm going to go to my phone. So that provides a method of distraction, which therefore they can't learn how to navigate those more challenging emotions. And being bored is one way to put it, but it's also how do you be with yourself and be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because in order to process those emotions, we need time. It takes time to figure that stuff out, and if we're so scheduled, how do we do that?
And to establish these relationships that are healthy and, so much science behind it, we need the time to put into those relationships. We see social media, different kinds of relationships that students have. It's just, unlike how we made friends back in the day. They still need to adapt to in-person relationship building, because that's also going to translate in future life when they're working and when they're in school. Yeah, and that's huge.